Keith, thank you for taking time out to talk with us. How are you?
I'm doing great. Happy to be here.
Awesome. For our audience, we do it in a very different way. How do you explain what you do to a 5-year-old?
Sure. I run a charity that works on supporting research to help you age healthier.
Wow.
And I also work with a lot of different DAOs that are around that subject.
What does age healthier mean?
So basically, we work on raising funds and awareness for research that's aimed at extending healthy human lifespan. And that basically means addressing the aging process itself as a better way to cure diseases. I'll give you one example, and the charity is lifespan.io. Think of cancer, right? You can, if you're a government, you can spend a lot of money on trying to deal with end-stage cancer, or you could try to solve the root of the problem, genetic instability. And if you could figure out a way to make that not happen as you age, you'll stop all cancers or most cancers. So that's just one example. Think of it as treating the trunk of a tree versus a branch of a tree.
Yeah, awesome. So for somebody to be exploring this, there has to be a particular way in which your life has evolved. Could you just talk about your work a little bit? And I'm going to I have some questions that I want to link it to, where ultimately we are essentially going to ask our audience how they could help you in your mission.
Sure.
But I just want to set some context in terms of who you are or where have you come from? How did you land on this mission?
Sure. So my formal background was in mathematics and computer programming. And in the early days of the iPhone, I made some silly iPhone apps that did well, and then started to work at a lot of different big tech companies, Major League Baseball, HBO, Disney, building applications. And, through that world, I obviously saw the power of storytelling and how much that matters, right? And about 10 years ago, maybe 12 years ago, I also kind of got into the early citizen science movement, which is, I guess, a precursor to this decentralized science movement that's taking hold now. And tried to just think of it in terms of true effective altruism, in terms of what kinds of work is going to have the biggest impact on the world. So for me, I landed on aging as being one of the most important things there. So I decided to combine the skills that I learned in the tech world, skills in understanding the biotech landscape and storytelling, etc., and building communities, which has most recently landed me in this world of decentralized science and blockchain technology, where I've had the good fortune of speaking with a lot of different pioneers in blockchain technology, a lot of the different Web3 organizations, everywhere from healthcare to community building to gaming. So that kind of landed me at this intersection of where I'm sitting right now.
Awesome. So, okay. Keith, imagine you have 24 extra hours in a day, right? What are the top problems you devote your time and energy to? And what I'm essentially asking is, you work with a lot of communities. I'm hearing words around public goods. I'm hearing a lot of technical stuff. We are in the world of crypto. You are, out of all the places, you are in between a bunch of people who are DAO enthusiasts.
Right.
What are some of the top problems that you see in this space? Where is your energy diverted towards the next few months?
Yeah, very good question. It's worth noting as well that I also work with a number of DAOs like BetaDAO and Gitcoin. But yeah, one of the main pain points is double-edged sword of the upside is a lot of energy, a lot of people looking to do things. And the downside of that is just this influx of so much information, so many different tasks. It's hard to prioritize, right? So yeah, I think one of the things that would help if there was more hours in the day or something that I could outsource is essentially this kind of context building, funneling of what matters right now, what do I need to focus on right now, denoising the landscape. I think that's where most of the time that I don't want to spend is being wasted now, is just separating the wheat from the chaff, understanding what I need to focus on, what needs to happen right now.
And you're speaking at Shelling Point tomorrow.
Yes.
By the time the video goes out, Shelling Point would be a thing of the past. But could you talk about what you're really going to talk on?
Yeah, so in Shelling Point, I'll be part of a panel on emerging funding models that blockchain technology can help. So obviously the most naive intersection of cryptocurrency and funding is just that there's a number of, crypto millionaires and billionaires out there, so there's money in the space. But what I want to talk about at the panel at Shelling Point is beyond that. How can, decentralized finance mechanisms and gaming mechanisms actually be used to create new philanthropy mechanisms. So I'll be very quick here, so I don't want to restate the pattern.
Yeah.
But basically, ways of...
Anyway, the panel would be a thing of past by the time this comes in, so you could...
Yeah, so the variations on quadratic funding, which is made popular by Gitcoin, using DeFi mechanisms and gaming that can raise money for charity, and also basically just finding ways to align a lot of different Web3 endeavors together to create like modern crypto philanthropies for causes like life extension research.
Wow. Okay. Awesome. So how can somebody who's thinking of working along the lines that you just mentioned, somebody who's interested in decentralized science, anything around, let's say philanthropy for that matter, anything around, we were just talking about like CSR activities, right? Like corporate social responsibilities. Could you just also highlight on your work with some of the companies, and on top, how can somebody reach out to you? That being my second question.
Sure. So I'll answer the second question first, which is like the simplest way people can get involved with what we do is literally go to our website, lifespan.io, which is a news outlet where you can learn. We have a lot of different YouTube channels, etc., one of which is very popular called Life Noggin, which is like an animated science edutainment channel. So obviously you can become part of our ecosystem by just subscribing, liking, and sharing on all the things, joining our Discord server. I'm sure I'm giving the same answer that everybody gives here. So that's like the simplest way to get involved. On the deeper way of getting involved is if anything that I've mentioned here in brief appeals to you and you're a builder, reach out to us, reach out to me. You can find me, Keith Comito, on every social media. So always looking for builders, especially people who have chops to build like dynamic NFTs that can do interesting things like scale based on philanthropic giving or based on what you're doing in a game. And to answer the first question now, the way that we've worked as a CSR partner to various kind of Web3 organizations is we might work with a Web3 game, for example, and through our expertise in aging and biotechnology, maybe advise them on some cool way that they can bring in some biometric element into the game that preserves privacy. And they'll add that to the game, and then they'll donate to us, maybe reflect a certain amount of the ecosystem's transactions to us as a donation, so that we help them in terms of ideating and cool ideas and connections. They help us in terms of donating, and then we mutually help each other in terms of like, here's how the ecosystem is coming together to serve public goods. Because that's, to be honest, that's one way that I've been able to personally convince a lot of people to care about the missions that I care about, like aging research, even if they don't necessarily care about aging research themselves, because you could see that. Imagine if you were sitting on CNN right now, you're being interviewed, and someone's saying, gosh, what is it really about these monkey memes and JPEGs? What are you really doing for humanity with this whole NFT stuff or blockchain technology? And you're able to just look at them right in the face and then we just raised $100 million for cancer research. What are you doing? It validates the entire space. So that's why I think there's a real opportunity here to kind of rising tides raises all boats. Let's figure out ways of how we can interoperate together. Each of us don't need to do everything perfectly ourselves. You just figure out what you can do excellently. Hopefully that's community building, right? We can figure out what we can do excellently, and then we just figure out how to work together, and it serves everybody.
Couldn't agree more. But Keith, I have one question which is slightly off the beat. For somebody to do things that you are doing, the kind of problems you are trying to solve, you need a very different, I would say motivation, you need a very different skill set. But more than that, you need the right company. You need visionaries. You need people who have enough resources on their hand. You need people who can think 10 years, 20 years ahead of the curve. I know you work with a lot of these people. My question is like, if you could share about who you work with, that's great. But more importantly, how should somebody who's thinking about tackling a very challenging problem, but they are absolutely nobody, right? Like they're an average individual. How do they go about taking the first step and the second step that they can come into the same spot and probably 5 years later talk about probably this video being the genesis point of what inspired them?
I'm really glad you asked me this question. So, because one of the things that I like to share, especially with people who are younger, just getting out of college or whatever, right, is, and again, I don't want to overstate my own experience here. All I can say is this is what's worked for me, and it's worked for people that I've shared this with, right? the thing that matters most beyond any kind of skill set, beyond what you learned in college or anything, is literally just, or two things, curiosity and passion. If you're really curious and you're asking questions and you really want to do something, you have a work ethic. What I found and how I got to my own position here in life is literally just sending like haymaker emails to like, you know, the most famous people that you can think of. Like, hey, I saw what you're saying here. I would love to get involved, but I'm a total noob, but I'm really passionate. Can I help you? Like literally,
Yeah.
almost always works. So just go out there and find whoever is doing the thing that is the closest to the thing that you really want to do and just ask them how you can help them. Maybe it's a simple answer, but I found it always works.
No, it always works. Like, and I have firsthand seen the strength of like cold calling or coldly reaching out to people. As long as there is intent, you could obviously do a lot. Well, folks, I think that's pretty much it that we wanted to have here in this chat. You know how to reach out to me. You know how to find Keith. I am at the rate Vix_Rum, VIKS_RUM, and DaoLens is DaoLens. Keith, thank you so much for taking the time out. It was a pleasure chatting with you.
Thank you for having me.